As an occupational therapist, I get really excited whenever I have the opportunity to work on impulse control with autistic kids. Mainly because we can do so much in one session, like at least 1,000 games. So let's talk about impulsivity today. I can give you 10 activities that you can try at home. And at the end, if you stick around, there will be a bonus for you. So impulsivity is not the issue, it's the environment. Let me explain. Think of an impulsive kid that loves to run, grab everything. Now put them in a park. Everyone should be having a fun time. Now put the same kid in a parking lot. That's when parents get concerned. So it's not the running or the grabbing that's the issue. It's when kids don't know when and where it's safe to do all that. So what is impulse control? It's literally like a big pause button at the front of your brain. It helps us pause and think before we decide to do anything. And that's our job as therapists, is to help your child be independent at pausing and thinking before doing. That way you can step out of the room for a minute without worrying for the safety of your child. And it's common to see impulsivity in autistic kids. It gets trickier for them because at the same time, they have difficulty in other areas. We're talking about language, sensory processing, but I promise you, they are very capable of learning impulse control. So what age does impulse control happen in our kids? According to Dr. Neufeld, a developmental psychologist, he says that you can typically see more consistency on impulse control between the ages of 5 and 7. But kids start learning about impulse control before the age of 5. So that's why you see parents and therapists work on strategies to stop, think, and do with kids younger than 5. Particularly at the age of 3, because there's a huge mental growth at that age. So what should we be looking at in terms of impulsivity? Like, when do we know a kid needs help with impulse control? Let's start with safety. If you're constantly anxious and worrying about the safety of your child, that's a big sign that we might need to practice a few things here and there. So besides safety, there's other concerns that I hear very often for parents I work with. They'll tell me their kid has a hard time waiting in line. It could be at school or an amusement park. They also have a hard time completing activities. Sometimes they'll mention they're very impulsive in conversations or social interactions. They talk for too long, and they don't allow other kids to talk, or they interrupt very frequently. Now, of course, these concerns might not be the same across all families. It all depends on your values and expectations that you have for your kid. Now, let's talk about 10 different activities that you can try at home, but I'll give it to you with a twist. I come from a clinic where we had PTs, OTs, speech, and ABA therapists. So I'm going to mix a little bit of everything so you can see the whole picture. Let's start with a simple search and find using a sensory bin or any container that you have at the house. Then take pictures of their favorite toys. You're going to hide their toys into the sensory bin, and then you're going to show them the picture. Now your kid's going to be responsible for getting exactly that same toy that you're showing them. Now we can do a car wash or practicing bathing routine. Let me explain. If your kid likes cars, you can do a car wash where they have to get the car wet, wash it, and dry it. But if your kids like dolls, then you can practice on bathing routine. Goal here is to practice simple steps so you can complete a whole task. For our next game, you're going to become the airplane pilot. You're going to take the lead. Your kid's going to be behind you, hands on the hip, and you're going to lead them throughout the house. Now, of course, take turns so your kid can also take the lead. They will love that. You can also try sequencing with pictures or books. Let's say you choose to use a book. Show them the first 3 pages, then close it, then ask them to repeat the same story in the correct sequence. Taking turns is very common when working on impulse control. So you can grab your Mr. Potato Head, you're gonna put all the parts in the middle between you and your child, and y'all gonna take turns in completing Mr. Potato. So if your kid is into superheroes and villains, you can play this game too. Your kid's gonna pretend to be the villain, you're gonna be the superhero. Your kid, as the villain, is gonna be playing in the room, acting wild, but the moment that you step in as the superhero, they're supposed to freeze. And of course, take turns doing this. Puzzles are very common with our kids with autism. And more often than not, they have all the puzzle pieces in one area. But with this next game, you can play a scavenger hunt. You can play a scavenger where you hide the puzzle pieces around. This is a great way of working on impulsivity and attention because they have to go back and forth and remember like, oh, I need to complete my puzzle. You don't need big equipment to do an obstacle course. You can use furniture and cushions around the house. Your kid can pretend to be a superhero, rescuing their favorite toy from one end of the living room to the other end. And here, the goal of the game is to make it from one end to the other without falling off. That way you can really work on that impulsivity of always jumping. Simple yoga exercises are fantastic for impulsivity. Just holding the same position for a few seconds to a minute is fantastic for them to control their body. And the last game is a toss game. They can roll their socks. You can put different targets around the house, action figures or pictures, and their goal is to knock them down. So thank you for hanging out with me. This is a bonus I promised earlier. Pediatric Constellations created a blog with 40 activities to work on impulse control. The link is going to be in the description, so go check it out.